Okay, we're just about ready to begin. We're going to wait about 20 more seconds. Thank you for joining us, and please, and thank you for your patience as we get ready to start.
I don't think we gave people much time to join.
Yep, they're coming in.
Okay.
Yep. All right, yep, we see a few people, a few more joining.
All right.
All right, thank you for joining, Meg and Raymond. Perfect. All right, give about 10 more seconds here, then we'll get started. More people will be joining us, but we got a few housekeeping items to go through.
Well, I've already told the dogs not to bark.
All right, that's a very important thing to do. There we go.
Comply.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and start with the housekeeping items. So welcome everyone to today's webinar. We do have a really nice subject to discuss today around PowerShell scripts. Just to give you a reminder and just a kind of a quick overview, in your go-to control panel, there are a few sections you can expand. One of them is questions section. So if you do have questions come to your mind as the webinar is proceeding, type in the question, and that'll be queued up for at the end of the webinar. We'll have a question and answer session, and that way you don't forget the question, and it'll be queued up and ready to go for me to read to the presenters, and then they can respond. Also, there are some handouts available. So there's a handout section. If you just expand that, you'll see there are 2 handouts, and you can simply download those to your computer simply by just clicking on the object, and it will go to your download folder, so your default download folder. During the webinar, we'll also have 3 poll questions, and we'll ask them all at the same time. So we'd ask for your participation in those polls, and we'll show you the results so you can see how your counterparts on the webinar responded as well. So that'll be a fun little exercise probably about halfway through the poll, or excuse me, through the webinar, and we'll go from there. We are going to record this, so if you want to be able to show this to colleagues, after the webinar, we'll prepare that, and then our presenters will send that out to you so that you can share that with others. Okay, I think I've handled all of the housekeeping items. So today we have RPR Wyatt doing the presentation. One other thing I forgot to mention, if you are having any issues with audio or video, simply click on the raise your hand, and I'll try to work with you in the background to be able to see if we can fix that for you. But GoToWebinar is usually very stable and ready to go. So now I've finished all my housekeeping items. So our webinar today is about PowerShell scripts. Our presenters are from RPR Wyatt. We have on the line with us Alan Forbes, Dylan Redfield, and Jim Engel from RPR Wyatt. So they've been around in the IT industry for a long, long time and have some great products. This is one of their newer products, and they're here to kind of introduce you to this particular product. So I'm going to turn the time over to Jim and Alan, and they will present the webinar, and then I'll come back on for the polls and for the question and answer session. So Jim, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction. All right, everybody, welcome. We are very excited about today's webinar, How to Modernize PowerShell. We'll be showing you how to automate, delegate, and control PowerShell with our patent-pending PowerScripts. We met many of you at the recent Ignite conference in Orlando last month, where you saw an abbreviated demo of PowerScripts. Today, we'll show you the full presentation. Without further ado, please allow me to go ahead and introduce your presenter for today, our own Microsoft certified professional, Alan Forbes. Alan?
Thank you for that kind introduction, Jim. Awesome. Thanks very much. So if you guys have attended some of my webinars before, this one's going to be slightly longer because I do want to take a deeper dive into this topic. I'm going to have a bit of PowerPoint at the beginning, demo in the middle, a little more PowerPoint at the end. So I'll start off with the basic value proposition, which is, what is it that we are trying to sell here? Why would you be interested in a product like this? So the first point is that even though you've moved email or whatever out to Office 365 in the cloud, there's still a lot of basic administration work that has to be done on a daily basis. We've got a number of customers that we do the administration for them, and even in a company with a couple of thousand employees, there's like 40 or 50 transactions a week that we have to do, whether it's adding somebody to a team or making a change to a mailbox or any number of things that just seem to happen over and over. And over and over. So what the PowerScripts product does is allow for secure delegation of these types of common admin projects to junior IT personnel. And the goal of that is to free up your top talent. So first we'll start with just, why do you have to use PowerShell at all? Office 365 is being adopted like crazy. It is rapidly evolving. And by rapidly evolving, I mean they're constantly adding new features to it. And typically what happens when a new major feature comes out, they have support for it in PowerShell first, and then it shows up in the admin panel sometime later. And that sometime later can be anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe possibly longer months. So for example, when the feature first came out that you could allow external users to participate in a team, you first had to enable that in a PowerShell script. And eventually the admin panel did catch up. That's because it's 2 different development teams. So the core team does the work on the core product. They add support for PowerShell, they toss it over the fence, and then the admin panel builds a nice UI for it. And that problem's never going to go away because the product is never going to be done because software is never done. But even still, even when you have a choice between doing something in the admin panel or in PowerShell, sometimes PowerShell is simply more efficient. And anything you can do in the admin panel, you can do in PowerShell, because under the hood, it's really just calling PowerShell. And yet, PowerShell does have some significant downsides to it. The first downside is related to credentials. And as you all know, when you first run a PowerShell script, the very first thing it does is prompt you for username and password credentials, so it knows whether you're authorized to run the script or not, because of course you would never hard code credentials into your scripts. The problem with credentials is they're basically all or nothing. Now I know that there are tiers of access within Office 365, but still within that tier, somebody with credentials has a fair bit of discretion in terms of what they can do. And credentials can be misused, whether maliciously or inadvertently. People can share credentials, and they're kind of like house keys. I joked as the webinar was starting that I told my dogs not to bark, because I do have dogs here. When I go away and I have to leave somebody my house keys, and I say, come in and take the dog for a walk and make sure there's water in the bowl. I can ask them not to go down into the wine cellar or into the expensive, jewelry cabinet or whatever. But once they have the keys, I'm not there. They can pretty much do what they want. And PowerShell credentials are kind of like that. The next thing is that PowerShell is code. Any script that has any significance to it is a bit of code, and code can be changed. So I came up with this formula of code plus inexperience plus credentials equals potential trouble. Not necessarily trouble, but potential trouble. So I'm asking you to imagine a different world. So imagine that instead of having to run these kinds of scripts over and over yourself, you could safely delegate the execution of PowerShell scripts to the part of the organization where it makes the most sense. And by that, I mean as low as you can go. So the most junior help desk person, the junior IT people, even people in end user departments. What this would mean is that your top talent, maybe it's you, could write a script once and then let other people in the organization be the ones who run it over and over again, with the only change being, the parameter of which mailbox to run it on or which user to run it on. So what are PowerScripts? Now, PowerScripts is a secure wrapper around PowerShell that allows an end user to execute a script in a very specific way. And you can run them against teams or against users or against mailboxes or against groups, against a room and a resource, SharePoint site, Azure, VMs and web applications and so forth. And basically the way it works is you navigate to a custom page that you send the people to. So the junior IT people do not go into the Office 365 admin panel anymore. They come in here. They navigate to the tab they're interested in. So if you need to do something for a mailbox, you go to the mailboxes tab. I have teams on the screen here. You click on the team you're interested in, you push the button for PowerScripts, and up comes a list of scripts that you're authorized to run. And you push execute, and that's it. So we say that this is a way to modernize PowerShell. And when we say that, what we mean is that there's no code, no credentials, and no skill. So no code, that means that the users who are running these things don't have access to the source code of the script, and that means that they can't modify the script in any way. They also have no credentials other than their own. So they log into Vital Signs, the product that hosts PowerScripts, using their own credentials, and those can be their AD credentials, or you can also maintain your own credentials in the product directly. And then when the script executes, the PowerShell script retrieves some credentials from our secure vault and uses those to run the script, and it creates an audit trail saying, that Alan Forbes ran this script at this time, and they don't have the direct access to the credentials themselves. And when you don't have the credentials, you can't misuse the credentials. And then finally, there's no skill, and by that, I don't mean that you're hiring people that don't have any skill at all, but they don't need specific PowerShell scripts to use, PowerShell knowledge to run this. They don't need to understand how PowerShell works. They don't need to know any of what goes on under the hood to use it. It's absolutely simple to use. So you literally just go to the custom page that's hosting the information about your tenant. You navigate to the thing that you want, and you click on the button and push it to go. And I'm going to demo that in just a second. So what this eliminates is you don't need to launch, the ISE, the integrated scripting environment. You don't need to provide complicated parameters. You don't have to import modules. You don't have to do any of the things that you normally have to do in PowerScript. You don't have to, save it on the hard drive and remember which script is which. We have a library where all these scripts exist, and this is a growing library. It's open meaning you can see the scripts that are in there. You can see the code. It's extensible, meaning that you can add your own scripts to it, and I imagine that you will, and you probably have a library of scripts already that you use fairly regularly. And that library is constantly growing as customers, ask us, hey, can the product do this? Could the product do that? We're constantly improving it. So PowerScripts takes you from this screen on the left to this screen on the right. So there's a certain skill level of people who could handle what's going on the left here, and there's an order of magnitude bigger universe of people who can handle the type of script that's on the right-hand side. And that's the world I want you to imagine. You can push this down to junior people, and they can do the work and not get in trouble. You're safely delegating PowerShell because you can give them complex scripts and they can run it, but they cannot modify it in any way, and they don't have credentials that they can abuse. This means that junior IT people, like the greenest people, first day on the help desk, can complete common Office 365 admin tasks, and even end users can do tasks that are related to their job. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of those in the demo. But for instance, the HR person could block access to an account if they know someone's going to be terminated, or if there's a pile of folders, which is layoff day. They want to go in there and turn a bunch of people off real quick before they can get into any mischief on their way out the door. The HR people can do that, but not anything else. Or the corporate lawyers that want to do a litigation hold on a mailbox or start a discovery case, you can allow them to do that and nothing else. So you don't have to do this kind of stuff anymore. Why is it safe? It's safe because the only scripts that are in the library are pre-approved and already tested either by us, or the scripts that you put up there yourself have gone through your internal approval function before they get up there. And then users only see the scripts that they're authorized to see. So if there's 100 scripts in the library, but a given user only is authorized to see 10 of those scripts, those are the only scripts they're going to be able to execute. They're not going to be able to, run a script that they're not supposed to do. The script library itself can only be accessed by senior IT people, and there's a specific role in the product which allows you to see the library, and the typical person who is using it would have no access to the library at all, other than to run the scripts that they're authorized to run. And then finally, the whole thing keeps an audit trail. So I'll show you how the audit trail works, but just the idea of an audit trail, I think, helps keep people on their best behavior. So I think that adds another layer of safety onto the product. And you maintain complete control over this thing. So the scripts are executed using stored credentials. The users don't need to know how PowerShell works to use it. Scripts cannot be modified by the person running it, except for the parameters which are exposed. For example, this script right here takes two parameters, a group name and a user principal name. And the scripts themselves can have conditional execution, which gives you like another built-in safety layer. And I'm going to do a zoom in on this script. So one of the companies that we're working with wanted the marketing department to be able to add people into marketing groups and take people out of marketing groups, because the people were constantly moving around and it was a real pain for the sole IT person. But he didn't want them to be able to modify any other groups. Fortunately, they had a naming convention for the groups, and all the marketing groups started with MKT. So we wrote a script for them, and we called the script add user to marketing group, and there's a counterpoint script to remove somebody. At the very beginning of the script, the first thing it does is check to see if the group name starts with MKT, and if it does not, then it tells the user, in this case the marketing person, you cannot add users to this group. But if the group does start with MKT, meaning it is a marketing group, then it proceeds down through the script and adds the user to the group and outputs back to the user some success message that says, hey, I added the user to the group. So even within scripts, you can limit what the script itself is able to do, and you can put a very specific scope on it so that people can't, rather than give the marketing people the ability to modify any group, it's very specific to their needs. So this is the PowerScripts script library, and I'm going to demo it live. But for any script, you can edit the script, you can add a new script. So if you wanted to upload a script of your own, you can also use an existing script as a starting point to make a new script by cloning it. And if it's a script that you just don't want in your script library, you can also delete it. So the audit trail shows exactly what happened when. This is another thing that's nice about using PowerScripts over native PowerShell, is I can see that on Tuesday the 19th, right before noon, Harry Help Desk ran the enable auto accept rooms resources script on the Texas conference room, and when that PowerShell script finished, it output a little bit of a message here, and the message is that the conference room is now in auto accept mode. So that's an example of what an audit entry would look like. And I'm almost done with the slide portion here. We're going to get into the demo, but also there's PowerScript roles, and you can create any number of roles. So in this case, I created a role called Start and Stop Azure, and anybody who's got this role would be authorized to run these two scripts, the start virtual machine and stop virtual machine. I see I checked a web app there, but the roles can be anything you want, and the scripts can do anything you want, basically. So in this case, the idea was that the salespeople who need to do sales demos of a product have demo versions of the software running on a VM, but they don't need the VM to be running all day long. So they can turn it on for a demo and then turn it off when the demo is over, but they can't get into any other trouble. They can't turn off any machines that they're not allowed to turn off, nor turn on machines that they're not supposed to turn on. Okay, so Scott, time for some poll questions.
Okay, we're going to pop up some poll, the first poll onto your screen. And so we need you to exercise your mouse and your fingers. So this is a select all that apply question. So what technologies do you leverage PowerShell in the most? So do you use it mostly in Office 365, in Teams, Azure, SharePoint?
You didn't practice reading that question, did you, Scott?
No, I didn't. Like doing Sally's picking seashells by the seashore, all that kind of stuff. So that's good. So we've got a lot of responses already. That's great. So half of us have voted. So it means that we're almost there. Good deal. We're already over 75% of people have voted. Let's get a couple more in, so don't be shy. And I'll close the poll here in 2 more seconds, and then I'll share the results with you. So looks like the majority run.
Ooh, that's interesting, actually.
PowerShell.
More Azure than I thought.
Yeah, Exchange. Oh, Exchange and Office 365.
Yeah. Huh.
There we go. All
I
right.
love these poll questions.
All right. So let's move on to the next one. So we're going to do 3. So here comes the second one. How many users currently execute PowerShell scripts at your organization? So this is just a single select here. Everybody likes this question. We instantly got up to 75% of the attendees voting, so this is great. All right, let's get a couple more in. And I'll share the results of this one now. So the majority of between 6 and 10, followed by 0 to 5, and then 21 plus. Wow. All right. Try to manage that one.
Cool, right?
Exactly. Okay, last poll.
No rogue scripts going on there, huh?
Nope. All right. Does your organization staff a support team? All right, a couple more votes in, and then we'll share. All right, I'm going to share the results. And overwhelmingly, yes, 86%.
All
Okay,
right.
great. Thank you for your participation, everyone.
Okay, my favorite part of the webinar, demo time. So what I have on the screen here is our landing page, basically, for PowerScripts. And you can see this is running in Azure. You could run it in our cloud, you could run it in your cloud, or you could run it on-prem on a VM that you have. It doesn't really matter to us. All you have to do is hook it up to your Office 365 tenant and authorize it to work. And then what it'll do is on a daily basis, it'll troll through your tenant and it will pull up information about your teams and your users and your mailboxes and your groups and your rooms and resources and your SharePoint sites, and it will populate this this dashboard here. And basically what happens is if I wanted to make a change to a team, for instance, like the marketing team, I can see that it has no members, and I could actually double click on it and see some information about the team itself. But what I want to do is add a user to this team. So I click PowerScripts. Now here's a list of the scripts that I'm authorized to run on the team. And I guess I should point out that I'm initially logged in as the administrator, and I'm going to log out and log in as different users as part of the demo. But at first I'm somebody that can do everything. So I want to add a team member. And normally, if you were going to be running this in PowerShell, you'd have to provide the team ID, which is this kind of not friendly string here, but we fill that in for you automatically. I want to add put in the parameter, and this list of parameters actually gets generated dynamically based on what's inside the script. So I push the button and up comes this little wait animation. What's happening in the background is that PowerScripts is retrieving the actual credentials from the vault, and it's injecting that into the script, creating a remote PowerShell session, executing the session, and then putting back to the box here the output of the script. So you can see I wanted to add Joe to this team, and it comes back and it says user Joe Thumo was added to the team. So a different script, let's say I want to get some of the team settings. I want to run a different script on the same team. Same kind of thing happens. And here the output of the second script is just looping through some of the settings that are in Teams, like whether people can use GIFs or not, or whether they can edit messages and so forth. But that's the idea of a script running on a specific team. And if I wanted to run it on a different team, I would just pick the team and push the button. So we can also do that kind of thing for users. So I could click a user and come up on PowerScripts, and you can see the kind of things that you can do for users is you can add them to a group, or assign them a license, or put them in a role, or block their user access, or turn on MFA, or turn it off, or list the meetings, or unblock the access. This one's kind of nice, is update user settings. You can, if somebody's name changes, you want to change their first name or last name, these are optional parameters, and you put a new value in there and push execute, and it will run that against the user. Pretty much anything that you can do in PowerShell, you can do as a PowerScript that can be automated. So here's the mailboxes, and there's different kind of scripts for that, turning off, auditing rules and sweep rules, and getting rules, listing the mailbox information, finding the meetings that a person has scheduled. Actually, that one, you can pull that one up. Some of the scripts you can pull from either place, either from the user or from a room or from a mailbox or a room, depending on the script type. But as you create these scripts, you get to define where they show up. So here's a distribution list, and I can put a user in, take it out, update some settings. Rooms and resources, same kind of thing. This is an interesting one that we did for another customer where if someone gets terminated or promoted or whatever, wins the lottery and leaves the company, and they've got some recurring meetings set up in the future that are in the conference room. When you disable the person, it doesn't necessarily remove the meetings and free up the space. So you can put in the name of a user and get rid of put in the user principal name and get rid of all the meetings that are scheduled for that user for that conference room. And that's a way to clean that stuff up. And finally, with SharePoint sites, there's scripts against those too. I think you get the idea. The last one is a tenant script, and a tenant script would be a script that doesn't execute on a specific thing. So the scripts I showed you so far, run on a team or a user or a mailbox. A script that goes across items in what it does, like getting all the SharePoint sites and finding out what their sharing rules is not running on a specific site but across the sites. Anything that's not specific to a particular person would be called a tenant script. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and just say we also have a dashboard for Azure. And that's going to do the classic demoitis thing and not going to work for me, but that's okay. It lists out the virtual machines, your storage accounts, networks, web apps, and so forth. There's also tenant scripts for that. Maybe we'll come back to that and it will work. So let me switch over to the configurator. So there's PowerScript Settings. So here in the script settings, come on. Could also be that thing stopped in the background. So all this stuff gets pulled up dynamically. Let me just load up the whole thing. Bear with me just a minute. Too bad we didn't have any more poll questions. We could. Okay, here it is. So on the PowerScript settings, which is a setting only for administrators, you can see on audit trail. So here's the two scripts that I ran in front of you guys. The add team member one, where I added Joe, and then I did this get team settings script. And as I was practicing for the webinar earlier today, I also ran the user to make sure it would work, and then I wanted to reset it. Of course, it wouldn't allow it to work if the user is already a member. So you can see I had also previously added the person and removed the person. That gives you a nice audit trail, and you can filter on any of these things. So you could say, show me all the things that Chandler has done, or just that Harry has done. So that filters the list down. We also have role management. So you can create a role and call it anything, and you can check off any number of scripts that go along with it. So imagine you have internal lawyers and you want them to be able to do litigation hold. So you can create a script called legal team and just check off the assign litigation hold script. You can also do something for human resources. So I'd want the HR people to be able to add a new employee to a team. They also might need to block user access, and maybe we want them to unblock access as well in case they added it by mistake. They also need to update the user settings. So if somebody gets married or the title changes, HR is often the first person to know. So you can give them just those types of scripts that are relevant for their job. And finally, there's the script library itself. So all of this is, again, admin features only. The administrator can go in here and look at a script. So
I can pick a script and hit edit, and I can see it. It's all just standard PowerShell. The parameters are at the beginning, and that's what comes up with that dialog box to show which parameters are presented to the user. There's scripts also you can see that come with the product, and we flag those as being ours, so it's warning you don't change this one, because as we do upgrades we might come back and update that script for one reason or another. But if you do clone it and make a new script based on it, or add your own script, it'll be flagged as a user script, and user scripts we don't touch as part of the upgrades. And so let me just flip over to application settings and users. So I've got some demo users here. We have Larry the lawyer, we have Helen Ray in HR, and Harry Help Desk, and Sally Sales. So for Larry the lawyer, we gave him the PowerScripts role, but not the PowerScripts manager role, so that means he can't see the script library. And then within the PowerScripts role, only give him the legal team role, and that means that the scripts that have been checked off for that particular role are the ones that he sees. Likewise for Helen, she's got the HR scripts, and you get the idea there. So let me log out, and I'm going to log in as Larry. So Larry comes in here. No, I don't need to add that to LastPass right now. Thank you very much. Larry's only allowed to do litigation holds on mailboxes. So if he came in here and tried to run a PowerScript on a team, you'd see that there's no scripts to pick from. But we'll go over to mailboxes, pick a mailbox and click PowerScripts. Well, I'll try that on user. I practiced this so many times before. Sometimes that's the way demos go. So let me log out of here and log in as Helen. ABC. So Helen should see a subset of scripts in the HR group. So, okay, this one's behaving a lot nicer. We don't like lawyers anyway, so that's okay. Helen in HR is allowed to add new employees to existing teams, but not do anything else to teams. And also with users, again, block user access, unblock user access, update user settings, and remove their future recurring meetings from a conference room when they're no longer with us. Just for fun, let me see if this is going to behave. Yeah, so earlier I tried to click on the Azure dashboard, and that didn't load for whatever reason, but that's behaving now. So here's, you can see a couple of VMs that are running. Obviously the HR person wouldn't necessarily have any business to turn VMs on or off, so there wouldn't be any scripts allowed for that. But we can also do it with web apps, and you could run tenant scripts against that. So for instance, you could allow people to create a new VM using a stored template that you've created. Anything, again, anything you can do in PowerShell, you can do as a PowerScript. And then finally, to show another thing that Helen is not allowed to do is if I tried to go over here and look into the PowerScript settings where the library and the audit trail was, it doesn't even show up on the menu. So she's not going to be allowed to do that. So, okay, let me go back to PowerPoint here. So that was our demo. So basically what you would have to go through if you wanted to use PowerScripts is you would install Vital Signs, the product that hosts PowerScripts, on a virtual machine or in the cloud on a virtual machine. You have to authorize the app to talk to your tenant, of course. There's a little bit of
setup that you have to do in the admin panel to authorize the collection of data. But once that's authorized, we'll go through your account and populate those pages with the teams and the users and the mailboxes and so forth. And I should add that these steps here we'll do with you or for you, with you on the line, because we do it, all the time. It's not something we would expect you to have to do. But this configure bit would be possibly a joint effort where we walk you through creating some of the roles that would make sense for your organization and then putting people into the roles. I didn't show this as part of the demo, but users can be either users or groups from Active Directory. So if you had a help desk group, all you had to do is add the help desk group to Vital Signs and say they can do all the scripts that Harry Help Desk could do. And if Harry was in the help desk group, he would have access to this. And if he was not in the group, then he would not. And the nice thing about using Active Directory as the authentication method for PowerScripts is that, if a person does leave the organization for one reason or another, and I always like to be optimistic and say because they won the lottery, as soon as they're blocked in AD, they're also immediately blocked out of being able to run any PowerScripts. So once that's done, all you have to do is give your end users that URL of the screen that I was demoing earlier and some simple training stuff. We've put together a couple of basic training videos and shortcut papers, but it's very, very simple to actually operate, as you've seen. And then you can relax, just let them do the work that you had to do instead. And so that's the optimistic picture. Now I'll just paint the gloomy picture a little bit. So if you don't buy PowerScripts, what's your life going to be like? And I think you know this already, and that is that end users always need something. That queue of stuff never goes away, and somebody has to do the work. And if you're going to be doing it in PowerShell or in the admin panel, without PowerScripts, that's limited to that small circle of people that you trust with those high-level credentials, and maybe that just means you have to do it. And if you're the one who has to do it, or your top talent is the one who has to do it, that is time and attention lost that could be spent doing other more meaningful work. So Jim, this is where you come in.
Hi, Alan. Thank you.
Hey.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for the presentation. Very informative. Here's what our proposition is to you. We don't just try to sell you licenses, literally. We really try to have our implementation is designed to help you succeed. Okay. We know that scripts are dangerous, tedious, and potentially, problematic at times, if you will. But we're there to assist along the way. We'll even help you write scripts when needed. We're delighted to do that because those scripts, as Alan alluded to before, there is that common library there that as we add new scripts, we can feed them out to the rest of our user community, and they all benefit from this. So when you need a new script, it's very often someone else needs something very similar to it. So we're very delighted to work with you in crafting new scripts. The product does ship with 100 scripts now, and we'll be shipping with more. And of course, we give you a process for uploading your scripts in there, which is also great. So we're constantly improving the product. We'd love to get suggestions from you. Every quality solution we've come up with has been a function of our clients providing us insight and feedback. All right.
And we do that as part of your subscription. That's included as a service.
Yeah. Complement it. Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
And how would you go about securing it, buying it? Yeah, it's a subscription product. It's Vital Signs is the product. PowerScript is the component in it. It's a paid annual solution. It can run on-premise in your cloud or our cloud. It's very flexible. We do have a very simple pricing model. We keep it to the unique individual in the Active Directory. That's how it's priced by. Okay, if you have multiple mailboxes, that's fine. You have shared mailboxes, or you have mail-in boxes and things of that nature, like info at, things like that. We don't charge for those. It's just for the unique ID in the Active Directory. We also have a special for you today. if we can secure a purchase order by February of 2020, we realize that, the 2019 budget is probably shot, but if you still got something left and you want to spend it, this is a great location. But if you're working on your 2020 budget, if we secure a PO by February, we will give you use immediately. We'll set you up, we'll work with you, we'll implement it and make it effective for you immediately. You'll also get, along with that, a free Microsoft Surface Go for PowerScripts on the go, for generating your PowerScripts on the go. You'll also get 10% off our published rates, and I'll gladly mail you the published rates today. PowerScripts, as I alluded to, is a module of Vital Signs, our overall monitoring and administration tool for all collaborative technologies. But we delved deeply this year into the Microsoft technologies, and we hit very hard on the Office 365, Exchange, OneDrive, etc. So we're very excited about this, and we're very excited about the launch that's happening now. So without further, we hope to get to see you in our future demos, and also hope to get you engaged in our evaluation process.
And look, there we are.
There we are. There we are. Please feel free to copy the phone numbers, and there's the email address of mine, and I'd be delighted to work with your organization to facilitate an evaluation of PowerScripts. All right. Thank you so much for your attendance today.
That's Jim right there. That's me, Alan here. Dylan's in the background, and the other
Heather.
Guys, Hal and Heather, are not on the call with us, but part of our team.
All right.
So Scott, if you got some questions first, we're good to go.
We do have some questions queued up, some great questions. So again, Thank you for everyone who's participated in the polls and in the questions. So let's go get started on the questions. The first one is, how does it work if the script calls for a CSV with the list of users and runs it against that import CSV?
We don't currently support that one, but I was asked that question at the show a couple of times, so we would definitely look into that. I think that seems like a fairly reasonably common request that the script, that's a common model for PowerShell scripts, is to read a script, input, especially if it's looping over a lot of names to do some work. That would be an example of a tenant script, and we would be happy to add that to the product, I would say.
Okay, perfect.
Not there today.
All right, yeah. So first question out of the box. Yep, it's a yep. We want that in the future.
You got any easy questions, Scott?
I do. I'll skip a couple here.
All right.
So okay. So the next question: does PowerScripts have accessible APIs?
Yes, it does actually. So all that stuff that I was demoing, it's really an Angular front end, and it's calling APIs on the back end, and the APIs use OAuth to make sure that they're authorized. But basically, if you pulled the browser up and had the network panel open, anytime you ran a script and you push the execute button, you could see the API that it's calling, and it's actually a common API for calling PowerShell scripts. And there's just a couple of parameters that you have to, post to it so it knows which script to run and so forth. But we see a lot of opportunity actually for people to plug that into the end of, a flow, or as part of a ServiceNow ticket, or who knows what people are going to do with it. But absolutely, you can call the APIs and bypass our UI entirely, although I am very proud of our UI.
Okay, brilliant. Perfect. Next question. Is PowerScripts installed on each end user's machine?
No, it's a browser app, so they don't have to install anything, which is part of what's a pain about PowerShell, is that PowerShell will only work if you have the right modules, and if you're either loading it from a script that's saved on your hard drive, or you're launching PowerShell ISE and pasting the text of the script into it. Users don't have to do anything. They just have to go to a URL, find the user or the mailbox or whatever it is they want to run the script against, push the script button, and pick the script from the list.
Okay.
Which is why it works great on a Surface Go.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
All right.
Okay. Next question just came in. I see the users need to select a script name that something to select what script they want to run. Can you change it to just a pull down with basic distribution of the task they want to run versus the actual script? Wow, long question.
So, yeah, actually we are looking at making those script names a little more human friendly even than they are, because right now it's just the title of the whatever the PS1 file name is on the drive on the machine there is what gets displayed. But you'll see that I actually kind of skipped over this feature, is that when you pick a script, of course, Helen doesn't have a lot of scripts anyway. As you scroll through the scripts, it does populate this little box here with a help, human-friendly description of what the script does. But we were thinking of maybe combining this combo box to have 2 columns or something where it actually displays the comment on the list in case you don't know even what script you're necessarily looking for. Although we tried to name the ones that come with the product, make them sort of human-friendly names, but we don't always succeed at that. But you can rename them. You can call them anything you want, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Good question.
Can you run scripts for multiple users? For example, adding multiple users to a distribution group.
That is also coming in the next release. So right now it's a single select, but the way it's going to work in the future is you can hold the control key down and do multi-select, or maybe we're going to have a checkbox here, and then you push the script button, and it would then loop through the selected items and run it against the parameter that you provided. So like if you were on users, you could pick a bunch of users and say add to group, because there is an add to group script, and it would run it for all of them. And and sometimes this list looks a little overwhelming, but there's lots of ways that you can filter them. So if there was a subset of users that you were trying to get to, you could actually select them fairly quickly.
Okay.
That was the whole answer.
All right, perfect. All right, we are a Mac company that uses Office 365/SharePoint for our cloud infrastructure. Are we able to use PowerScripts, or is it accessible for Windows-based companies only? Windows client-based, I guess.
Read the question again. I'm sorry.
So we're a Mac company.
Oh yeah.
So
well, I'm running this on a Mac.
Yeah, I was going to say I can answer that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a browser interface.
It's a browser app running against your Office 365 tenant. So running things against your users and your teams, your mailboxes, and so forth. And it doesn't care whether it's on an iPad or a Mac or a PC or a Surface or whatever. Good question, though. Because in the old days, that certainly did make a big difference.
Yes.
Yes, a lot of software was platform specific. So, like for instance, the Domino Designer client only runs on a PC.
Exactly.
Continues.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me check, see if we got. We had a couple more questions come in. Can PowerScripts use a CSV file to define the input values?
Objection asked and answered. Not yet, but we'd be happy to add that product for someone who actually needs it. If that was one of their primary use cases, then absolutely we would do it as part of the deal even.
Perfect.
Products are always driven by things that people want. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's been on our list for a while, but no one's asked for it yet, so we haven't done it yet.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. Yep, and I apologize. I was thinking that was maybe just slightly different.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to define the list values. Okay, so great. I think we've done all of the questions. We'll do a last call as we're almost out of time. Just double checking. Yep, that was another CSV question, so I think we're good. Well, thank you again for everyone for your participation, your questions, and thank you to Alan.
Thanks for having us.
for the presentation. I'm going to leave it for you to have the last word, and then we'll leave from there.
Well, my last word would be if there's like the CSV question, if there's anything that you see in there that you'd love to see added to the product. My primary job is listening to customers and getting their ideas into the product. So I am all ears when it comes to those kind of things. Jim, how about you?
I'm good. I appreciated the presentation, and I appreciated the value of the questions. I look forward to working with anybody who wants to follow up on this. We're excited about the solution. We think it's going to grow exponentially, and we want to be part of that success.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.